just sit and watch.
Snug?
Because it's a ceremony, that's why. Oh, hey there. Welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. If you've never listened to the show before, welcome. Feel free to go back and explore the back catalog after listening to this episode. I recommend episodes 25, 79, or 105 as starting points, depending on how far back you want to go. If this isn't your first time listening, I greatly appreciate your return. Please consider leaving a review for the show. It really helps us a lot when it comes to new listeners discovering the show. So, in addition to providing entertaining and informative photography-related information, I also go on adventures with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. Right now, Golden and I have been invited to view a special ceremony honoring the conjunction of the two moons here on Lake O Prime.
Snug?
No one wants to hear about your conjoined moons. In this episode, I talk with Indigenous photographer Cody Hammer about preserving traditions and culture through photography. It's a great conversation. I highly recommend you listen to the whole thing, and it's coming up right after the break.
Snug, 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 snug.
No. Those are not snacks. They're part of the ceremony. Hey, photographers, are you ready for a website glow up? Get supercharged with StyleCloud. StyleCloud offers beautifully designed, high-performing website templates built just for creatives like you. Whether you're showcasing weddings, portraits, or passion projects, you'll look as good online as your work does in print. Were you left high and dry and wondering what you were going to do with your Flow Themes website when the company shut down? No problem. StyleCloud makes migrating your Flow Themes site easy. Your content moves over, no stress, no mess. Plus, import your images directly from your PicTime galleries. No downloading, no re-uploading, just seamless integration and stunning design. Visit nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/stylecloud or visit the link in the episode notes. Save 15% when you use code nerdyphoto15 at checkout. That's nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/stylecloud and use code nerdyphoto15. StyleCloud isn't just a template, it's a launchpad for your brand. Get started today. Hey photographers, imagine losing every photo, project, or document in a single crash. Scary, right? That's why there's Backblaze, the simple, reliable, and automatic way to back up your important data and photos to the cloud. Photographers, creatives, and everyday users, Backblaze protects what matters most with unlimited backup and easy recovery whenever you need it. I use Backblaze as part of my workflow to back up my most recent shoots until they're delivered to my clients, my most important business photos and documents as well, and all of my personal photos and videos. It's just $9 a month or $99 a year for unlimited data backup from one computer with 1 year version history and access to your data from anywhere. Crashes happen. With Backblaze, your files are safe, secure, and just a click away. Start your backup today at nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/Backblaze or click the link in the episode notes because peace of mind is priceless. That's nerdyphotographer.com/Backblaze because you never know when a crash is going to happen. Hello and welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett, and I'm here today with photographer Cody Hammer. Cody, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate giving me a little bit of the time. So
no problem, man. I love having you on. And we're going to start out with the dice breaker. It's a 12. Worst photography investment you've made.
So the 12, let's see. So for me, I would say probably there's a little handle you can buy for a little off-camera strobe, you know what I mean, for a little light, for a speed light.
Yep.
I went very cheap with it. And up here in Oklahoma, it's a lot of my photos I take right there on the prairie. And you want to talk about something just flying out of my hand when I was not ready for a gust, you know, because I was solo shooting. So holding it with one hand, trying to shoot the other way. And, you know, that little whatever screw thing to kind of hold it down, one little bit of gust of wind on the prairie.
Wait, did you have a modifier on it, or did you just?
Yeah. It was just a little speed light with a little, probably like a 26-inch octo on it. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling good, feeling whatever. You know, I had a little trigger on my camera, and the moment that wind came, it was probably the first, second shot. Maybe it just took it out of my hand. I was like, yeah, I think we're just going to natural light this thing today. So I would
Yeah,
say that was probably one of the worst ones that I had.
I think we've all, if you've set up lighting at all outside, have had that
Mhm.
moment where you realize that it just kind of become whatever it is, whether it's an umbrella
Right.
or a softbox or anything, it just becomes a sail.
A
And
sale. Yeah.
once the
Hmm.
wind gusts up, I've had like a C stand like sort of lift
Hmm.
up off the ground that
Yeah.
had weights on it, and I was like, okay, that's not good. Um, yeah, and just trying to weigh things down appropriately. But I've also had that
Right.
experience because I'm like, I don't need a lighting assistant for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Try to
I
do it
can
all
just hold it
yourself.
up here and then just feel like shooting right out of your hand.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So Cody, for our listeners who are unfamiliar, can you just give us a quick idea of your photography background and journey?
Okay. Well, more or less, I don't feel like I started very conditionally, I guess. I don't even know if that's the right way to put that, but a real quick gist of it was 2018, maybe 2017. I was working for a boys and girls club here in Oklahoma. Just moved to a new town, and I worked probably 30 minutes from it. Moved there. I was there or moved at that boys and girls club. I was there probably for, it felt like almost a year, maybe 9 months. The funding for it kind of got shut down, and I got moved into a communications department. And the tribe that I worked with here is called the Osage Nation, and my wife is Osage, and we have daughters. And more or less, if you have an Osage family with kids, they try to at least keep you in a job because it's also their people as well, so they don't want to have a jobless person, I guess, because it's they're members of their tribe. So they threw me in communications. I was there for a few months, didn't do anything. They were like, "Oh, you need a degree for this. You're just kind of here, and we'll find you a spot to put you." So I was like, "Okay, that sounds good." And one day, the lady that I worked with there was kind of like, "Hey, I actually need a photo for a story I'm writing. While you're here, maybe here's a camera. Maybe just throw in auto. I just need a photo if you don't mind to go take it." And I was like, I've been kind of sitting around for a couple months, and I was like, "Sure, I'll go do it." And that moment I took that photo, I felt like I naturally framed it. It was weird. I don't really know how to explain it, but the moment I took it, like hearing the shutter go off, it just felt good. It was a weird like thing. And I got back, and then I just kind of it was already I wasn't even shooting raw. It was already in JPEG. You know what I mean? Kind of more or less for the news, I guess. And gave it to her and everything. And I went and sat back down at my desk I had at the moment, and I was like, that felt really good. I think I want to kind of see what this is. So next thing I know, I was in Lightroom on YouTube, looking up everything, getting a degree from YouTube pretty much, and from that moment in 2018, I literally lived this, I went through every bad shot, every struggle I felt like, and I didn't really think of those as those. I just took them as lessons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have literally lived this since that moment. Like from that day I took that first frame, it has been my life, and that was in 2018. And I've slowly just kind of grown and got to where I'm at now. And it's been a fun ride, and a very challenging one, but I love those kind of things. And yeah, sorry that was kind of
No,
long, but
no, man. Like, I want to. These are the things I want to hear. I mean, like in that moment, like what I mean, when it clicks, it's. I mean, it's just
mm,
like everybody has their own sort of feeling about it like, when that happens, and for it to be like the first like real photo that you take. I mean, the
mhm.
bitten by the bug, and it just happens. That's incredible, man. And your work is amazing. And I mean, you're just recently, when we're recording this, recently featured by Sony on
Yeah,
Instagram. I mean, it's
yeah,
you're I love hearing those stories about how people like really got into photography and how that that you were talking about like, oh, they're saying you needed a degree or whatever, and I
mm,
see all these people who are like, oh, you go get a photography degree. And I'm like, no, does you can I am personally am totally, like, not totally self-taught, but a lot of it taught
right,
by people on online, by books, by going to
Mhm.
workshops, all those things that, you know, have contributed to my photography education in the last, 25 years. It's a long,
Right.
there's very little like formal
Oh yeah.
school
Hmm.
involved in that. And I think that one of the things that I really appreciate about your work is how you present the culture.
Hmm.
And what inspired you to use photography? I mean, obviously, like you had mentioned, there's an aspect of it to your job, but
Hmm.
now become more of your. It seems like more of your personal photography journey is
Right.
preserving and sharing the indigenous culture.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that kind of came about. So at the time I was doing all that. So here and for the Osage Nation, every year they have their ceremonial dances, the Alonshka, and luckily you're able to photograph them, but you cannot photograph the dance itself. But you can get people getting ready and everything like that. And so that would have been a couple months after I did that first shot. She was like, "Hey, we just, we always post about it. It's a tribal paper or tribal news type thing for the communications." And they were just kind of like, we like to put stuff on social media. And I was like, okay, well, what do I do? She said, just go down there, walk around, just take a few candid photos of people, and whatnot, and just, kind of interact. So I kind of felt like that's when I kind of started. I was like, you know what? I really enjoy taking pictures of people. I'm not a landscape guy or anything like that, or, at least not right now. It might be later. You never know.
Yeah,
Um, but I felt like that was the moment that kind of made me be like, you know what? I think getting photos of people and it kind of made me feel a certain way. And I was like, and if it makes me feel a certain way by looking at what I'm doing, it's got to do that to other people too, And I realized those moments that I was doing that a lot of the photos were going to be for people. 10 years from now, they're going to look back and be like, oh, look, remember when you were little? And I'm like, hey,
Mhm.
oh, well, that's my photos. So I'm glad that that can kind of do that for people. You know what I mean? And I felt like I went into it not selfishly. Like those moments, like I said, were for the people later down the line, and I grew up pretty much with my parents as well, but also my grandparents, and it was kind of those times that I wish I was into this genre of photography way then, because I felt like those moments that could be kept for them, you know what I mean? Or I would always have.
yeah,
And so I kind of felt like that was like more or less something that was going to do that for them. You know what I mean? And way later down the line. And I don't know. I think being out there, it made me feel like that. I just want to do portraits of people. And I look at my stuff then and I'm like, oh man, I've come a long way. You know what I mean? But I think also doing all that and taking photos of people, it also kind of made me more of a extrovert when it comes to that, because I have to interact with people. And I've also built those relationships now that I have reoccurring people. I have people that are kind of like, they see me, they're like, they get ready to pose. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't have the camera today, which is very rare, but it's just one of those things, that
they look
people
for you.
trust me. Yeah,
Yeah,
they look for me. Which also makes it easier to photograph them, because they're just kind of like, oh, he's going to get good ones of me and this and that. You know what I mean? So,
you've built those
but I
connections with people that
yeah.
and that's such a huge thing. And no matter what kind of, if you're photographing people at all, it doesn't matter like what kind of like people photography you're doing, having that
Right.
connection with people and trust
Mhm.
built up together is such a like making people feel more comfortable. It's
Yeah.
such a huge thing, man.
Yeah. And I think I didn't realize that, and probably until like the last maybe year or two, that how big of an impact that was, because even if I'm not getting a photo or a good photo or one that I'm happy with, I'm still happy the fact that I am also interacting with somebody, and when they see me, they're happy, and vice versa. You know what I mean? And it's created more than just photos. It's also created bonds and community. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And I feel very involved with that. So it is cliche and as cheesy as it sounds, but it is true though. Like it has created friendships and stuff like that I'll have forever just based off me carrying around a little DSLR or mirrorless. You know what I mean? So
I'm honestly, man, that makes me feel really good for you,
mm,
and like just good about photography and like the things that it can do. And I mean, it just warms my heart to like
yeah,
hear stories like that, because that's you're creating bonds and building community is,
mm,
you know, I mean, do you see
for sure.
this also as a, you're playing a part in like keeping culture and traditions alive for future generations? I know you're talking about like, like as an example, like what resonated with, what I do a lot of wedding photography. It
Hmm.
resonates with me that like people are looking at like these photos 10, 20 years from now,
Right.
as like the first, like the start of this new family, and their
Hmm.
kids are going to see those photos, and
Yeah, of course.
and that sort of thing. But that there's also for you, like there's a, because I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, like please educate me if I'm wrong
Okay.
here, because I'm a white guy talking about this. But
No,
like
you're good.
there's a, for me, like viewing your photos, it's the beauty and tradition of this indigenous culture, and
Hmm.
seeing what's happening, and hopefully learning something from it as well. But it's also, it keeps that stuff alive, because I feel like when we look back at history, there's like photos, like or at least in our recent history of like 150, 160 years since photography has been more prevalent, like
Right.
that is one of those things that we look back on as like a one of the more, it feels tangible recordings of culture and
Right.
history.
Hmm. No, yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I think like for me, when I think of, I guess like old timey photos, I
Yeah.
guess, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
At times I think about that mine will be like that at some point, you know what I mean? And, but also very like, not just the fact that, the people that I'm photographing are dressed in regalia and stuff like that, but I also want to make them feel more than just that, you know what I mean? And I want people to see like, yeah, they have everything on, and that all that's been passed up to them or passed down to them, in any kind of sort of way that was almost meant to be taken, at one point, so and as weird as it sounds, like I always think of the Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. I feel like that with my camera at times. You know what I mean? Because I feel like this is what I do. I have found something that I love, and I can tell stories with it, and the person's eyes tell their story. And I feel like once those are together, that like it's what I'm meant to be doing, especially for people who might not feel like they have a thing to say. And sometimes I feel like I can get them to feel like they are saying something without actually saying anything,
Mm.
and I feel like that's important for like what I do. Um, but also, it is also like I'm not Osage at all, and a lot of people that I'm photographing aren't the tribe that I am, but my kids are also they're Osage. So some of the people that I'm photographing are not just Osage, but mostly they are, So I feel like it's also a responsibility for me to show, from my side, my daughters, and stuff like that, and the people that, hey, I am proud of who you are, you know what I mean, and I want you to be proud of who you are, and everything that you are. So I feel like when I do these photos and everything, that not only does it for the people, but it does it for like my family as well, and that's just kind of like a goal thing for me, like. And sorry if I get off like in a
No,
tangent. I
no,
get
go.
I get to where I get a little excited about it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and I'll get words twisted up. But I just it's a thing that I truly care about, and at times I can't even explain why. I just know that it's important. And I feel like if it's speaking to people, then it must be more than just more than just a photo.
Yeah.
So
It
yeah.
it carries a lot of weight.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious about something like, do you feel And you were talking about like, photos of people in regalia, and like, do you feel a need to also like document people like in a more like modern way, as well as like, when they're dressed in the regalia, to like kind of have a balance of like what the again, I'm not saying that like, because culturally those things like, the dances and things are still a big part of it, but also capturing outside of that, so that it's not like, because I think that for people who are not part of the indigenous community, that can become kind of the stereotype. There's, from outside of it, from outside of, for me, like as a white guy, um, I would feel that there's like, I don't know, that there's almost a, not a trap, but a there can be a tendency to focus on the regalia part
Mm,
of it, which kind of becomes, for the people outside of it, almost a stereotype.
right.
Do you feel like a need to balance that with more like of the life outside of that, like more modern
Mm,
life of what's going on outside of the, the big get-togethers and
right,
things like
right.
that?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and and that is kind of the I don't know, how would you say it, the bumper, I
Yeah,
guess, because there is, a lot of times that a lot of the tribes are put together as one whole. Everybody's the plains, native and everything, and it's not true. Like everybody is different. We're in our own. We all have our own language, everything like that. And every dress is different. Like every uh, because some are dressed this way doesn't mean the other do, and I know doing these at times, and people, because I get a lot of people that see them who are non-native, you know what I mean,
yeah,
and they see that and it kind of fits that cliche stereotype, um and I have thought about that, and I know that's one of those things that probably happens, but it's kind of one of those things where I feel like doing it, it's kind of like, oh, I'm trying to think of a way to put this. It's kind of like, you know if you know, you kind of know, but if you don't know and are uh, well aware of different things and that things might be different, you'll probably ask, you know
mhm,
what I mean, instead of just assuming, I guess,
yeah,
and because sometimes I feel like those are good, healthy conversations that I think that we need to have, and in general, and because it's vice versa. There might be things that I don't understand of not even another tribe, you know what I mean, another nation. Like
yeah,
I might not, like I said, I always go back to the Osage Nation just because that's where I'm at right now. I've learned so much about the Osage people through my wife and being part of the community and everything that I had no idea. You know what I mean? And I get, it's I from the outside in, I really don't look like an outsider, I guess. You know what I mean? I'm
yeah.
able to kind of blend right in, but oh, excuse me. But I don't know. I don't feel like I kind of don't feel like I need to photograph other than what they are wanting to be in. Especially a lot of times, I'm kind of putting myself in a certain niche, I guess, because a lot of people reach out to me about those style of photos, and I guess it's one of those things where I feel like, um, it's their powerful moment that they want, and they know that I will make them look a certain way with it. And I don't never feel like I need to not take that away from them, because really, it's not them speaking out to people to be like, oh, I'm also something different. It's
Mm,
really them being like, no, this is who I am,
right.
and I feel like, um, I don't know. I love that, because also like me, there's a lot of times I will say, yes, I'm a photographer, but I'll always put like indigenous in front of it, or native, just because of like, for like what we do and everything. Like, yes, we can be photographers as well. We all have different stories. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I think it informs your view on
mhm,
what you're documenting, the
right.
photographs you make. And I mean, what I was kind of getting at was like, do you feel the need to also document, or maybe this is somewhere you're like plan to go in your journey, I don't know,
Mhm.
like the non regalia photos of like
Right.
people outside of that? Like, is that something you want to try to balance with, or
Right.
like,
Like just based of like native people just
yeah,
without regalia.
yeah, like
Okay.
life and like
Yeah,
outside of
it
those moments.
depends. Like the hard part with it is it's almost kind of like not, I don't know how do you say it. It's I would like to do stuff like that. Like down here, because I know you said you do weddings
Yeah, yeah,
as well. Sometimes down here, a lot of the weddings, are very they're not wearing regalia, but they're wearing things that are, native influence, sometimes by native designers, certain
mhm.
clothes and stuff, that kind of stand out. Uh, I guess I just really haven't had that opportunity that isn't, I don't know, how do you say it? Like, not just plain clothes, if that makes sense. You
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like that, yeah, it is everyday thing, right? But like I just at what I feel like when I go to those things, and like if I'm taking a photo of, just a couple of people like around hanging out, I would kind of like for them to be doing something that identifies them as native people. Because a lot of times we get mixed with different races and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I feel like it's important to have those certain things, I have a friend here, and there's a game that we play, like the southern tribes, called stickball. It's very like lacrosse-y
Yeah.
feeling. But like, they can be in whatever, but I feel like having sticks would be just say a lot, like, like the ones that they play with. Like that would be something that I would like to do. That's not regalia, but it also speaks for another tribe, So so I have done photos like that, like when I was with the Osage News here. That's where I moved after I left communications. I went to the Osage News, and I went to a lot of events to cover uh, the tribal politics and people getting sworn into their seats on like their Congress or council. You know what I mean? Those are very just everyday things that they're doing through their own sovereignty, through their tribe. Um, but like, I don't know. I guess I just never felt like those specifically spoke the way the regalia ones do, And also too, they were just very candid. So I have never
Mhm.
really had the opportunity to do certain portraits with like um in the same way that I do them with things that are just everyday people, which could happen. And I've done like senior photos and stuff, and I would say those opportunities kind of happen. But a lot of times they have like a fan that's like full of feathers,
Yeah.
or they'll have blankets on them that kind of represent that they are an indigenous tribe, native community. So
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
kind of it's a good mix.
yeah, I understand what you're saying, and yeah, it's just my thought was like, is this something that you like want to like eventually like some at some point like balance the two? Um,
Right.
I mean, it could be, yeah, interesting. The what do you think? I mean, again, this is coming. I'm looking to be educated here.
Yeah, no, you're
Uh,
good. Yeah, of course.
what are some of the bigger challenges that indigenous photographers face when they're trying to gain recognition in like the photography industry? I mean, I know like you're saying like
Yeah.
those regalia photos are the ones that get people's attention and get those likes and shares and things.
Right.
I mean, is that
Yeah.
do you ever feel like that's sort of the like the cliche is something you're kind of fighting against, or like like
Mhm.
what are some of the challenges you guys face?
Um, well, honestly, there's only a handful of photographers that I know that are in the same kind of thing that I do, and I'm sure there's more out there, Um, but I feel like we all kind of also have our own way of photographing each person differently, which is everybody's like that,
Mhm.
So I feel like each one helps with what we're doing, but I also feel like a lot of the challenges are. Um, I'm trying to think of like a way that's not too. Sorry if that wind's kind of.
No, that's fine.
I'll try to block out a little bit of it. Um, I don't. I would say I'm probably not. I don't feel like I have a lot of challenges, if that makes sense. Just because of the part of the area that I'm in. I think if I was in a not so immersed area and haven't been immersed, that it would be a lot more challenging. But I haven't really. I've kind of gotten very fortunate with where I'm at when it comes to subjects. I guess that's not the best word, but I'm trying to think of a way to group everybody, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but I've been very fortunate enough to not have any kind of problem finding people to photograph or be willing to photograph. And at times I do stuff for free, like I just love doing it. And and I feel like also that's kind of how I've gotten better at it, doing stuff like that. But I think if I wasn't in the area, that it would be tough because I would feel like I need to find a way in but not knowing how to ask or not knowing how to go about it. That wasn't in a disrespectful way,
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a tough one. I guess I would say I'm also kind of islanding myself on one look. You know what I mean? Kind of what we were saying a minute ago.
You're niching
Because
down.
at first, but it's also that's by my choice because that's what I want to do.
Right.
And I know that, I'm kind of getting away from like the family pictures and stuff like that, which I like to do, but I've just slowly kind of gradually got to this point to where I can kind of pick and choose, and which I'm fortunate on, and so I would say if I was still trying to figure out where I was at, it would be difficult because I wouldn't have a sense of direction, but I would also feel like I'm overstepping, So,
yeah, I mean, I think that what you're talking about, like respecting people, and like think that it's something that non-Indigenous photographers really need to focus on. Like if they're coming up to, if they're in any way involved, like I traveling and various different cultures, and I'm always like, hey, is it okay if I take your photo? Is this like something that is like you're comfortable with, and it's okay that I do this? That having those communication skills and being able to like really like be able to like and not just assume that it's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And like I said, even me being, dark and still native, like I naturally still feel that what do you call that?
Pressure.
Dang it. Pressure, I guess. Yeah, pressure. And, that I still feel that I would feel that I would need to ask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like now I've done it so much and I see so many people all the time, a lot of the same people. And like I was saying earlier, people see me and are like, hey, Cody, you know what I mean? So it's a lot easier for me now, and I can not push boundaries, but I can push like creative boundaries for myself. There's things I'm willing to try because I know this person now, you know what I mean? And they're willing to do it too. And it just, it couldn't, I guess I couldn't be in a better spot regarding where I'm at. You know what I mean?
You've built a comfort level with those subjects where they know that they can trust you and like you can try different stuff. That's fine. But you also have built the communication skills to where like you meet somebody you don't know, but also you have a reputation with other people. Like if they see you with like photographing other people and they're like, okay, well, this person trusts them. You've built that up. I think it's important for people who are coming from this like totally outside to like be respectful and like politely ask, what is okay for me to do here? What's okay? Like what is the process here and how can I respectfully document this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think I learned way early on in my life, even before I was doing this, to be okay with hearing no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I learned that as a little kid, and I think that's helped me through all this, but it also taught me like to not be afraid to ask, and if I feel like I am they're probably going to say no, then okay, but I still need to get to ask, and that goes with everything, like not even just doing like, Indigenous people and everything like that, because I reach out to brands, I reach out to things all the time because, I'm just trying to venture out, and I know 9 out of 10 times it's probably gonna be like, no, or I won't hear anything, but I can't, if I don't ask, I'm going to drive myself crazy, and so I feel like it kind of works with everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, that goes for everybody. I mean, if you assume that they're going to say no and don't do it, then you'll never know. They may have said yes. There's been times when when it comes to this podcast, when it comes to work, where I've been like, oh, maybe I shouldn't ask. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. The worst they can say is no. When I already build that into my, I tend to be, people don't believe this because, I do this. I used to be an actor and other things.
Mhm.
Like, they're like, oh, you're not an introvert. But I have a real issue with approaching people I don't know.
Right.
But then I kind of develop a script for myself of being like, hey, like, so this is my character, my opening character. And then once we
Right.
get to know each other, then I become more of who I am. Like, then I feel more
Right.
comfortable being myself
Yeah.
and approaching people. But it's that outreach thing, like going up to people that
Mhm.
I don't know and saying, hey, can I take your picture? Or, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? That one's especially difficult for me, like going up to people I don't know, like
Right.
personally, and saying like, hey, I really like your work.
Mhm.
What do you think? But if I assume they're going to say no, there's no chance whatsoever. The chance is zero.
Yeah, of course.
The chance is
Yeah,
zero. You're at least giving
for
yourself a
sure.
50-50 shot by asking.
Right.
It's either
Yeah.
yes or no.
Yeah. And if not, they'll at least look at your stuff and be like, oh, okay, maybe, or maybe I should have said yes. And they could always
Or
reach
maybe,
back out,
yeah,
So,
maybe they'll come back at some point down the line. Who knows?
right.
That's,
Right.
yeah, I think that's an important lesson for lots of photographers to
Right.
become comfortable with hearing
Mhm.
no, and
Yeah.
like just saying like, it might not go my way. It might not, like, there's the, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
When I used to be an actor, it was sort of like, I would paste up like the rejections on things that I thought that I was like, okay, well, eventually somebody's going to say yes. And they
Right.
did. But then, it's just like, that's and it's the same thing with photography. It's like eventually somebody will say yes, and you're going to
Right.
move forward.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like I said, I think for me, it's one of those things where I've always kind of done this very selfishly. Like I was saying earlier, that the only thing I'm expecting from anything is just of me, and um, what comes with it. I'm just gonna do it because it's what I feel like I want to do, and I don't feel like I follow any kind of guideline but my own, which I'm sure I do at some point, like in some sort of way underneath, everything. But I feel like that I've learned, and kind of like you said, the character. I've done that too. I have
Yeah.
an opening icebreaker. I'm like, hey, some kind of way. I have to be. If I want to do this, I got to do something like that. And then, like you said, then that's when people really get to know, like Cody. You know
Yeah.
what I mean, and stuff like that. So I 100% felt that when you said that. So
Yeah. You got to have that little thing. Otherwise,
mhm.
I would go to like meetups and other stuff and just be
Right,
like, I don't know how to talk to any of these people because I don't know
yeah,
anybody. Like, I got to find an extrovert friend who can like introduce me to
right,
people. But
yeah,
yeah, they just figure out like, oh, this is my thing I'm going to say.
mhm.
And, then
Go from there.
yeah, we'll just go from there. We'll see
Yeah,
we'll improvise our way out of it.
yeah,
See what happens.
right.
So, I mean, where do you think, do you have any projects you're working on? Like, where do you see yourself like going in your photography journey?
Okay. Well, right now I have two personal projects that I want to attempt to work on, just with my work at my 9 to 5. It's been a little difficult, just because on the side I work for Cherokee Film here in Oklahoma, and we do a mini doc series, Osiyo TV, and I'm a cinematographer, so I do a lot of filmmaking here, and it's just kind of it kind of is cut into some of the times that I want to do my own personal, because I have a photo project and I have a film. I want to do my first short doc, uh, but I just haven't really been able to grasp how I want to do it or anything, just because of time. And I'm not ever saying it won't happen, but that's me kind of putting that to the side, and kind of I'm like, now's not the time. Just keep writing down stuff that I need, that I want to do, and I'll jump on it when it gets to that. So just a lot of that going on right now. Like I said, photo projects. I really want to try to put out a like a little table book, or whatever you would call it,
Yeah.
by the end of the year. It might just be one from the beginning. It might just even just be for myself. Nobody might not ever see it. It's just a thing for myself, and that's kind of goes into the photo project, because my idea is to get a book full of people in their regalia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And from elders down to kids to babies. That's just a goal of mine. I've always wanted to do that, print it on some nice paper. And, it might be one of those things that I gift my parents,
Yeah.
just because that's my love language. I'm a giver. I'll
Yeah.
just give people gifts. I might not be able to give you a hug or start a conversation, but here's a book that says I love you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
I totally get it. It's completely, I'm on the same wavelength with you. And it's like, I'm working on a project right now that's probably going to finish up in the next week or so that I've been working on for the last year that I don't know if it could be anything, but for me, it's important. And it's just like,
right.
I'm like, same thing. Might just print one copy of a book. For me, who knows? We'll see what
Who
happens.
knows?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
for
doing
sure.
those things, and it's the thing I recommend is getting yourself a notebook. And
For
like you're
sure.
talking about, like writing down whenever the idea strikes, write it
Mhm.
down. Because if you don't write it down,
Yeah.
you'll forget it. Like
Yeah.
it just it leaves your brain. Because there have been times where I've sit there like, oh, I've got a great idea for
Yeah.
like a quick little photo project, and then the next morning I'll wake up and be like, what was that idea that I had?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't remember, and I
Yeah.
kind of get a little bit of it, and I'm like, no, but there was something real. There was a good hook, and I can't
Right.
remember what it is now. Yeah, just always be writing that stuff down because, and like, if you have projects that you want to work on, like, yeah, just
Mhm.
like even when you don't have the time to sit down and give 100% to it and like focus entirely on it, if you can think about the ideas of what makes up that project and be like, okay, this is how I round it out, and I prepare
Right.
myself for that moment when the moment comes, and I've got the
Right.
time to do it. And yeah, because I've got notebooks full of ideas for stuff that I just, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I need to have enough time to do that. And and then I started knocking them out. Like there sometimes it's like something will get slow, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to knock out these three ideas in this weekend because I just have enough time to do it, or like
Right.
I have the time to like set up a portion of this project and get it done.
hmm
Highly
Yeah,
recommend that.
and I'm like that too. Like I said, I have recently within the last few months started just writing stuff down. I wasn't, I've been a very off the rip, just go with it, figure it out when I get there. I always make the joke that I might be doing it the wrong way, but I do it the wrong way really fast, so you can't tell that I'm doing it the wrong way. You know what I mean? And or I've just gotten really good at doing it that way. But having the book has been kind of nice. My wife actually bought them for me. And first of all, real quick, I just want to shout out my wife. She's a very big supporter of everything I do. She's literally put on hold some of the stuff that I think she wants to do just to help me kind of keep going and with the kids and everything, and so I just, I love her a lot. She's helped me out a lot. So, but
You're a
yeah,
good
I just
man,
recently
Cody.
writing, yeah, I try. But I've got notebook. There's even been moments where I've pulled over just to write something down I thought of in that moment. Just because I try to do the voice memo thing, I'm like, and I'm like, no, I have to write it down. Like, 'cause if I don't, kind of like you said too, it's like a dream. If I'll forget it the instant I don't think about it, and then I don't even remember what it was.
Yeah, because there's
So
some important aspect of it that you really need to, and it when you write it out by hand, like I all these
mhm,
people I know are like, oh, I just take voice memos, or I just do this. It's like there's something about writing out with your hand that
right,
connects your brain to your hand, and the making and writing the words down that
yeah,
makes it sink in and really kind of crystallizes part of it in your head, where you're like,
right,
oh, this is really what I was thinking about, and
yeah,
you really get a lock on it, and that's
for sure,
that's yeah, like I said, like notebooks upon
yeah,
notebooks of ideas. And sometimes
for
I'll
sure,
like pick up a new notebook and start writing stuff down in a new notebook, and I look back at an old notebook and I wrote down that idea
yeah,
before, and I'm like,
the same thing,
yeah,
yeah,
I've thought of this before.
right,
Maybe that means that this is
yeah,
what I should focus on next time I have some free time because it keeps
yeah,
coming up.
for sure, yeah, and I'm like that too. I mean, I get to where I'm just even doodling, you know what I mean? Like just to feel like I'm using it, and but I'm also like I'm not a forcer either, I don't really force anything. I just kind of it happens, and if it's on my mind, it's probably getting jotted down. So
Well,
yeah.
I'm definitely an idea guy. It's the
Yeah.
as an Aries.
Oh yeah,
It's like the
yeah.
like I get the ideas and I'm like, yes, this is great. It's following through and getting to the end of the
For sure.
project that's hard for me. So
Right.
to kind of get us back on track a little bit,
Okay.
one of the big things for me on this show, especially, and using my platform is amplifying other people's voices and like,
Mhm.
signal boosting other people.
Right.
What can, you know, people be doing in the photography industry to amplify Indigenous like artists, photographers? Is there something we can be doing to help out and make like, boost the signal?
Mm. Yeah. You know, I would say that I feel like even, because at times there are photographers who come in who are non-native, and do things, which is, I have no problem with that, anything like that, but it's kind of one of those things, like I feel like if you don't know, ask, even if you have somebody there with you, that's going to help you or something, I feel like the more you feel like you are involving the community, I feel like that also makes the Indigenous person or the community even a little bit more, uh, you know, uh, willing, I guess, and because there's always going to be people that ask questions. There's always going to be people that are like, oh, well, dang, what? I didn't hear anything or this or that, But a lot of times, if you have things or you have people in contact, that it just kind of eases that, I guess,
Yeah,
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Most of the time, everything's good, everything's cool. I'm just speaking, just metaphorically, I
yeah,
guess, for everything. Um, but I don't know. I feel like I I feel like that right now a lot of the indigenous stuff that I'm seeing is actually coming from, native photographers, and I feel like that's a good thing that's happening, and I'm not saying that other photographers can't have those things either,
yeah,
but I just feel like having a good sense of what you're doing and trying to go about it in a way that's very respectful, and also with a little bit, I'm not saying that you can't do it without the permission of people,
mhm,
but I feel like if you're uh uncertain and not sure, it's probably good to ask,
yeah.
and to not, don't be surprised if you do something and something happens and it's like, oh dang, I didn't know. It's like, well, you never
Yeah,
asked, and it's
and
just
accept responsibility for you making
right,
the mistake if you make a mistake.
right,
What
yeah,
I'm asking is like, how do the rest of us help amplify the Indigenous voices? How can we help get those like help like spread the
okay,
word of
yeah.
like what you're doing and like
Oh, I got you. Oh,
uh,
okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. My bad. Sorry, I was
it's
like,
right.
oh, hey, we're getting deep. I'm a
Oh,
bad.
we no no
Okay,
no. That was good. That was good. I'm just saying like,
yeah,
but I'm also saying like, how can we help?
right.
How
Yeah,
can
no, I get you. Well, honestly, I would say for me, I feel like this last year has been very, very good to me, at least regarding uh, and it's just me speaking for me personally. I would say very good publicity, I guess. I'm trying to get a
Mhm.
better word for that.
Yeah,
Because, I feel like a lot of my friends, because I went to high school in Arkansas, and a lot of them had no idea that I was Native American, and now I have friends who are asking me questions. I have friends who are even sharing my stuff with people all over. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like the Sony thing wouldn't have happened if people who were non-native wasn't sharing what I had. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And kind of coming together as like a photography community. You know what I mean? And uh, I just feel like that way and sharing, and I feel like helps a lot. You know what I mean? And especially, you know, um, trying to think of a way that it's not, right on the nose, but uh, just because I thought about these and I'm very like, I kind of get right to it. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
And
It's
uh,
fine.
but I would say just kind of what's already happened. I'd say share their work, share, everything like that. If you hear something, suggest a shooter that you might know,
Yeah,
or you know, uh, maybe, just sorry, I'm just trying to think of how I want to word it where it doesn't sound like I'm repeating. Um, yeah, I would say just share their work,
sharing is
reach out
caring.
to them, maybe hear about projects that you might know or that they could work on, and just hire native photographers,
Yeah.
like, I feel like everybody has their own story. And sometimes, if they can be used, and we all have our own way of telling things and doing things, I feel like that it makes us not only better as a community, as people, you know what I mean? But I feel like that works for the whole world. You know what I mean? If we can all be together and do things together and work together. So
Yes, please. Like more perspectives help people understand each other. Like, here's the thing.
right,
We come from completely different backgrounds, but
right,
there are things that you and I connected on in this conversation, like that struggles that we've both gone through, things that we
for
both deal
sure.
with, or like things that resonate with me about how you work. Like there are so many things that we connect on, but then we can also like see that other person's perspective on things that, like that enriches our experience of life. That's my
Right.
as an artist.
Of
When I
course.
see an artist who has a different perspective and I see
Mhm.
how they see things, and it's just like it like helps open up my brain
Right.
to things I might not have thought about before.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I 100% get that.
So, final question.
Okay.
What advice do you have for indigenous, non-indigenous photographers out there who are like thinking about getting started? What advice do you have for them?
So I kind of say this all the time. I've said this to my daughter. She's kind of slowly getting into this, just based off just watching. Um, but I feel like what you're don't think of your photos as good or bad. I feel like practice, 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 and I feel like your time will come. Like your style, everything will come. So I feel like if you love it, you're gonna, it's kind of like what Michael Jordan said. I quote people all the time, but you know, you got to learn to love it, and then learning it comes easy, and like for me, from personally, I felt like I learned to love it really quick, and that wasn't based off uh thinking of like whether it was good or bad. I knew early on that the only way that I would get better would be willing to put myself out there and try and try and try and not overthink things and just have fun with it and love that you're doing it. So I would always just tell her to like just try to fall in love with it, and the learning part and everything will come later, and it'll be a little bit easier on you. So if you love what you're doing and it feels good and you are enjoying every minute of it, you'll find your way. So that's kind of what I always say. What I would tell like a younger person, kind of starting out, just enjoy it, and that all that stuff will come a little bit later.
Yeah, man, that's that totally feel that. There's such a, and I don't, maybe you didn't experience it, but I think it's such a trap
Mhm.
that artists of any kind can fall into when they're
Right,
starting out, is that, oh, this isn't perfect.
right,
This isn't what I imagined it would be immediately. And you start to feel
right.
like, oh, well, it's me and I'm just not good enough.
Mhm.
And then people
Yeah,
stop, and they stop trying to create because they
right.
think that there's there's something wrong with them, and that they're but you need to put in the time
Hmm.
so that you can understand yourself in your own
Right.
voice. You find your voice and what it's going to be by doing it, and doing it over and
100%.
over and over again. Picking up
Over
the
and over.
camera,
Yeah.
pick up the
Right.
camera, like, and it changes
Mhm.
over time as you get older, and like
Yeah.
like, you evolve and you
Hmm.
become, like your view on things changes. So, and I think that's another thing that
Right.
people get afraid of. They start thinking like, oh, but I'm supposed to be this person that I was. Like, no,
Right.
you can change. You can change who you are. I think. Do you have your own website? Are you tired of dealing with slow loading pages and poor support from your current web hosting company? Consider switching to SiteGround, the top rated web hosting company that provides 24/7 support and super fast hosting speeds. SiteGround's platform is built on the premium Google Cloud infrastructure, ensuring top reliability, security, and speed for your website. Their fast network and storage provide optimal site speed and a high level of redundancy, so you can trust that your website will be up and running smoothly at all times. With SiteGround's ultra-fast server setup, your pages will load 30% faster on average, giving your visitors a better user experience and improving your website's SEO. And with hosting starting from just $1.99 per month, it's affordable for any budget. Plus, if you're not completely satisfied, SiteGround offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't suffer with a terrible web hosting company any longer. Make the switch to SiteGround and experience top-level support, super fast hosting, and a reliable, secure platform for your website. I spent years with a web hosting company that was absolutely terrible. My site was constantly getting hacked and support was nearly impossible to get a hold of. Since switching to SiteGround, all of those problems are in the past. Just visit nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/SiteGround or click the link in the episode notes to get started and begin enjoying faster, more reliable web hosting today. Hey photographers, tired of spending hours culling, editing, and publishing your photos? Narrative does it all for you faster and smarter. With AI photo culling, you can quickly sort through thousands of images to find the best shots. With AI editing, you can customize edits to match your personal style effortlessly. And with publishing made simple, you can share stunning blogs with ease. Save time, stay creative, and let Narrative handle the heavy lifting. When you use the link in the episode notes to try Narrative, you get 10% off and an additional 200 credits for edits. What are you waiting for? Try Narrative today. Visit the link in the episode notes and get started for free.
Hey. And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. This is always death.
All right, Cody, it's time for useless information for this episode. True or false? Humans are capable of echolocation.
I think it's true.
It is true. Not
Yeah.
everyone can do it, but some blind people have figured out a way to navigate the world just using clicking noises, similar to the way that bats navigate in the dark.
Mm-hmm. Well, my first thing was, Daredevil.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yes, an echo. Cody, man, this has been a real pleasure talking to you and getting to know you. Where can people find you online so they can see your work and follow along with you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. You can find me on Instagram, _ Cody Hammer _ I'm on Facebook as well, but I kind of get mixed in the looks. There's actually a lot more Cody Hammers than I thought I was the only one. I'm on Threads as well, Cody Hammer, and on YouTube, just Cody Hammer as well. You just have to find my big head in there. I'm not up high enough to pull up right up the top, but usually Instagram's the best place to find me. So
well, I'm going to include all those links in the episode notes so that people can go there and find you. Again, Cody, thanks so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate you taking the time.
Perfect. I appreciate you, and thanks for dealing with all my back and forth and stuff. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Cody Hammer. You can find Cody on Instagram at _Cody Hammer _. That link is also available in the episode notes. While you're in the following mood, be sure to subscribe to the show and follow along with the Nerdy Photographer on social media at The Nerdy Photo. That's at The Nerdy Photo. No dots, underscores, or dashes on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok, and Reddit. You don't want to miss out on all the discussions and shenanigans that happen between episodes. If you're already subscribed and follow, please give us a review sometime. Like I said before, it dramatically helps our rankings on podcast platforms and helps new listeners find the show.
Snug, snug.
Yeah, I know. It's a really beautiful tradition.
Snug!
No, you can't go up there and join them. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and stay nerdy. Get back here.
Who's that coming back to town? You better stop.